Blade Runner is one of the very few films that left a strong imprint on its fans' minds. Even if it's your 100th time watching Blade Runner, the movie will manage to leave you in awe. However, while watching the movie, we do stop to consider how it'd look without CGI. Well, let's just say it won't look good at all. To satisfy the curiosity, we did some research, and here's what we know so far. So, was CGI used in the original Blade Runner movie? You'll be shocked to know that the 1982 Blade Runner didn't use any CGI. In an interview, one of the special photographic effects supervisors who worked on Blade Runner, David Dreyer, explained how the whole movie used matte painting, miniature work, front projection, as well as optical compositing instead of using CGI. At the time when the original Blade Runner movie came out, the use of digital effects was not common, and most movies used models and miniature photography to achieve special effects in the movies. According to Dreyer, about 90 special effects shots were created for Blade Runner. However, only a few of them couldn't make it to the movie. These shots varied from simple scenes with only 3 composited elements to extremely complex scenes with more than 30 composited elements. He also added that the special effects kept developing with time as the miniatures were changed in size and shape according to the scene's necessity. Different models were used for the flying police cars. Some were life-sized while others were around 20 inches. Some were even smaller than that as they were used for distance shots. Even though Dreyer explained it all, some fans still believe that the final cut had a few CGIs in it, as it's impossible to create such a masterpiece without them. But we stand with Dreyer, as CGI was not that popular during the 80 seconds. So how much CGI was actually used in Blade Runner 2049? Now, just because the original Blade Runner didn't use any CGI doesn't mean the sequel didn't. Even though the CGI use was much lesser here, the special effects had us hooked to the screen. This makes us believe that the sequel wouldn't have been such a masterpiece if CGI wasn't used. The director of Blade Runner 2049, Denis Villeneuve, is not a big fan of CGI and tends to opt for more old-school options. In an interview, when asked about the use of CGI in Blade Runner 2049, Villeneuve said that green screens make him depressed, which is why he hates them. He also added that they had to use CGI at some points. However, he can count on his fingers the number of times the green screen was used during the whole filming process. According to Villeneuve, the sequel consisted of CG enhancements, but they made sure that most of it was in camera. Even the little use of CGI in the movie played a major role, and many of the scenes wouldn't have existed without the use of CGI. For example, if we talk about flying cars in 2049, we don't have flying cars to use yet, which is why CGI was used for setting the movie in an extremely advanced world where flying cars were normal. We believe it would have been so basic if CG flying cars were not included in the sequel. So how did Blade Runner 2049 get a VFX Oscar nomination? Blade Runner 2049 is a masterpiece, and even the least amount of CGI used in it ended up getting it a VFX Oscar nomination. According to reports, VFX supervisor John Nelson and the team worked for hours in order to go ahead of what fans saw in the 1982 original film. Among all the scenes of Blade Runner 2049, a particular scene gained special attention from both Nelson and Villeneuve, and this same scene is believed to be the one that led the film to get an Oscar nomination. If you've watched the movie, you must remember the scene where Deckard meets Wallace. Deckard is offered something dear to him in exchange for information about the child replicant's whereabouts in this scene. We see Rachael, one of the replicants, and Deckard's love interest from the original movie, appear from the shadows. In the original film, Rachael was played by Sean Young, and to recreate the same Rachael from the original movie, Nelson and his team worked on a CGI version of her. This means we wouldn't have seen Rachael's cameo if it wasn't for CGI. While talking about the CGI version of Rachael, Nelson said, "I looked at all the digital human work, and for the most part, I could see where it all falls down." Nelson realized that motion capture was enough for capturing the face they wanted to portray. They only needed to add some minor details to get it done, but all of this took them almost a year to realize the right method. How did Nelson and his team create the CGI Rachael? While filming, Rachael was given a code name of Rita, and only a few crew members participated in filming this scene. This was to ensure that the news about CGI Rachael wouldn't go out in public before the movie's release. First, take on creating the CGI Rachael. The team started the process by creating Rachel's digital skull. Later they scanned Sean Young's head with it and also found a life cast of her character from the original film. After the scanning, the de-aging process started where Nelson and his team de-aged the CGI head by using the footage from the original movie. While the team was busy creating the perfect CGI Rachael head, the scene was shot with actress Loren Peta as the body double of Rachael. While shooting the scene, Loren Peta had dots all over her face as they were needed during the motion capture phase. Loren's face was to be removed, and the CGI Rachael would take its place. After this, Nelson showed the footage to the producer and Villeneuve. However, both of them were not so satisfied with it. According to them, the character Nelson had created was like a woman who looked a lot like Rachael but was not Rachael, and it needed more details to it. As a result, Nelson and his team went back to the starting point. Second and final take on creating CGI Rachael. For their second try, Nelson and the team had to go a little deeper to attain the realness in CGI Rachael. Instead of focusing on Sean Young's perfections, they started focusing on the imperfections that made her beautiful. According to Nelson, Young's eyes were not symmetrical, and they had to study the makeup techniques used in the original movie. He also said that he had to ask every female crew member about the makeup of the 80s. They found the right lipstick shade and every other little detail that had anything to do with the Rachael from the original film. This time, instead of showing the producer and director the finalized scene of the sequel, Nelson inserted the CGI Rachael's head in 4 different scenes from the original Blade Runner movie and showed it to them. Both of them couldn't tell what was going on, so they asked why they were watching scenes from the original film. That's when Nelson broke it to them and told them what he did. This was when the CGI Rachael was finalized. One important question still remains: how did they make the CGI Rachael act like a real actress? Now, with a perfect CGI Rachael, it was time to bring her to life and make her act like a real actress. Nelson accepted the challenge of making her look like a real, believable actress that the audience couldn't point out as a CGI. For this, Villeneuve had to do a super secret session with just Loren Peta and Sean Young present there. For this scene, both actresses had to wear motion capture rings while shooting the scene. As a final product, fans were able to see Rachael coming out of the dark confidently and with longing in her eyes, just the way the original character played it. Although the whole crew worked extremely hard for this scene, Villeneuve was still quite nervous about this specific scene, as he wasn't really a lover of CGI and disliked the CGI people he had seen in other movies. However, he was satisfied once the final version came out. CGI or not, Blade Runner is a masterpiece. Blade Runner and its sequel are both masterpieces, and the reason is not under veils either. Both movies have a lot going on, and there's so much to grasp that the fans don't lose interest at any point. The noir elements in the movies, combined with sci-fi imagery, make for a visual treat. The rich details of each scene will have you hooked to the screen and completely lost in this fictional world. These movies tell the stories of the future and its advancements, but what actually elevates the Blade Runner franchise to being a masterpiece is the visual magic used to portray the complex narrative throughout the films. Anyway, that's a wrap for this video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.